welcome to Tuesday Night Takes. Thank you for joining us and spending about 1 hour of your week with us. We are back, and it's been 2 weeks. It's going to be 2 weeks, 1 week, I don't know. But I'm here with my friend Nathan. Nathan, how are you doing today?
I am great, just
Great.
great. Waiting for school to end.
Yeah,
I
it's
am
it's
great.
it's coming here. The NBA playoffs are starting. The NFL draft's coming soon. Lots of things developing, happening soon. We're in like a really weirdly good time for sports. That's just what it is.
Hmm. That is
But
true.
we're gonna get right into today's episode. We have three different topics to go over. The first one being this little I don't know what you want to call it. Our favorite draft scenarios, maybe. I kind of did a mock draft and decided what I think might happen, may happen, what could happen. We don't know what's going to happen. No one does. The teams don't know. But basically, just kind of talking through what some things that could happen, what would be interesting if they did happen. So, with my mock draft, I think I'll start off with one of the most interesting things I think could happen in this draft would be four quarterbacks straight. Like the first four picks are all quarterbacks. So you would see Caleb Williams, then Jaden Daniels or Drake May, then the opposite. So whoever didn't go at two, at three to the Patriots, and then four, I would assume the Cardinals trade out with like maybe the Vikings. That's probably one of the most interesting things because I don't know that four quarterbacks have ever gone 1 through 4.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's fairly likely because the Cardinals are definitely in a position where trading down is a very real and it could be a very beneficial possibility for them, especially given the quarterback the number of quarterbacks that are at the top of the draft boards this year. They're in a prime position to trade down and get a good number of picks from potentially a team like the Vikings who desperately do need a quarterback, and
Right.
they've got two first round picks. You can get two first round guys this year, so they could for sure be a prime candidate for a trade down right there, and we could see those four straight.
Yeah, I mean that the one thing I will say is I can't decide whether I think the JJ McCarthy hype is like actually real or if it's more like one of those things that what was it like last year? Will Levis number one pick. Well, he fell to the second round. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and granted, he should have been a first round pick. I don't think he should have been in the second round, but it kind of came out of nowhere. There was some smoke, there was some hype, and then all of a sudden it was just not true. Is that true at all?
Yeah.
Can Minnesota sit at 12 or whatever, 11, and then just take him at 11? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'd venture to guess that it's not there. It's to me, it's got to be smoke. I don't think there's any way that a team really does take McCarthy over either Daniels or Drake May.
Yeah.
If they do, then it's their loss because I mean, is it possible that JJ McCarthy long term is a better quarterback than those two guys? I suppose so. Is it likely? No, not really. I mean, Jane Daniels and Drake May, they're high upside prospects, but they
Yeah.
also come with their own flaws, and JJ McCarthy, if you get him in the right system, he could be a pretty dang good quarterback. I'm convinced that he'd be a stud in like San Francisco. Now it's not going to happen, of course, but you
Right.
put him in the right place, he could be great. So uh but with that being said, I mean, I think you're taking a big risk with probably not much. JJ McCarthy's not an upside type quarterback.
Right.
He's got upside for sure. He kind of gets slotted in as a game manager type, but I definitely do think there's more to his game than just game manager. However, if we're taking upside, then I'd rather have Daniels or May.
Yeah. What's a take that you might have for this draft that may just, be kind of interesting?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm actually going to follow the trail that you kind of already started right there with the quarterbacks up at the top of the draft. I think it would be absolutely fascinating to see JJ McCarthy go at two, because then you're in a position where at that rate, unless Arizona is completely sold on Marvin Harrison right there at four, and they're like, we want him, we need him, we're going to take him, then someone is moving up to four. And
Absolutely.
then even, and perhaps the Chargers, if Arizona took Marvin Harrison at four and then the Chargers sitting there at five, they would probably trade out. If they chose not to, then you have the Giants sitting there would be an interesting spot right there because you'd have either one of those guys, Jane Daniels or Drake May, available for them. Do they go ahead and take one of those guys, or are they going to trade out? Because they're going to stick with Daniel Jones for one more year before they can boot him and save some money on him. But I think JJ McCarthy going at 2 would just open the floodgates with teams looking to trade up. We've got it would rearrange the draft order as well, at least in that top 10 range. That might be where you see like Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze fall maybe a little bit further than they should.
Right.
Maybe some other stuff happens in there, but I think, and then also just seeing which team gets to trade up and get either a Daniels or a May, a little further down the board, down the draft than they would have to begin with. You could get a Denver could be trading up. The Vegas Raiders, they could be trading up. There's a few different teams that could. You got the Vikings, of course, but I think that would shake things up big time and make things really interesting.
Yeah. This next one I've got is kind of also in line with this, but it's multiple trades. And I mean, at this point in the NFL, like as a league, every year there will be multiple trades in a first round. We're not in a spot where they're not going to trade in the first round. And so listing out what exactly I think could happen, starting kind of in chronological order of the picks. So I think Arizona trades with Minnesota. They send some sort of package, but it's focused around Minnesota getting pick 4 and Arizona getting 11 and 23, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then at number 8, Atlanta, I think, trades out with Denver because of the Minnesota deal. Minnesota trades up to 4 to most likely land J.J. McCarthy. Then at 8, Atlanta trades out because they might see that, Denver can be really needy at the quarterback position. They got rid of Russ. They have to have a plan. They might be willing to jump up a lot for Bo Nix with little assets to trade, but they might do it and very much overdraft Bo Nix at 8. But Atlanta still can land a top 2 edge at 12 with how that would play out. Then at 9, you see, this is kind of what Arizona did last year. You saw Arizona go from, I believe it was 3 to somewhere about 12 and then back up to 6 to get Paris Johnson. That's what they did last year. This year, they go from 4 to 11 and 23, but then trade 11 for 9. And, obviously there'll be other picks in there, but that's the main gist of it. So that they can go up and grab Roma Dunze after missing Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that'd be very interesting, very smart. Because, yeah, is he Marvin Harrison Jr.? No. But you're still getting a very good receiver while, gaining a lot more assets. And then the last one I have trade-wise is it's really a Brandon Ayuk trade that forces this hand. But it's San Francisco trades Ayuk and they do a pick swap for this year's first with Pittsburgh, 20 to 31. This is something that has been reported on quite a bit, and I think there's some, like, where there's smoke, there's fire. Oh, his agent came out and said he didn't request a trade. Does that mean he's getting traded? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that cancels it at least. So this would, it would be those two plus maybe next year's second from Pittsburgh and this year's third, something like that. I think that's plenty because you got to consider the fact that Ayuk's going to have a pretty hefty contract come in with Pittsburgh as well. So they're going to have to reason with that. But that gives Pittsburgh the opportunity to go back and still maybe grab a center that they're really needing. And that gives San Francisco the ability to go up and grab a rookie receiver to reset that contract market, maybe a Brian Thomas Jr. That's a big scheme, a big ladder there. But I think it'd be very interesting to see those trades happen.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm all for it. The more trades we get, the more hectic the draft gets. The more hectic the draft gets, the more entertaining it is.
Right.
I think it's realistic. And the thing about it is, like, any sort of string of trades that people present in their mock drafts is reasonable, especially this year with the madness we have at the quarterback position, where there's a very real possibility that we have 6 quarterbacks go round 1.
Yeah.
It's a very real possibility. I think for sure 5 are going. I'm sold that Bo Nix will be a first round pick because of the teams that we have that are desperate for quarterbacks. And then Michael Penix is there. He's going to be a back half of the first round pick if he is one. But I have to think that someone very well could move up into the first round, somewhere around maybe that Baltimore pick or Buffalo, perhaps. I think Buffalo probably will stick and pick, but one of those teams at the back end of the first round. Get up there and take Penix so they can get that 5th-year option.
Yeah.
But with that being said, with the players that we have at the top of the draft boards this year, anything could go as far as trades. And then, we had a couple years back where AJ Brown was on the trade market right around draft time. We see him get traded on draft night. I believe he was traded on draft night.
It's close to
it was. Man, I'm thinking of Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown traded on draft night. That was the recent one. Yeah, no, AJ Brown. I think he was traded on draft night because they took Traylon Burks.
Yeah, I think it might have been a few days before or something, but
maybe it was.
Maybe it was close. It was close.
Either way, they traded AJ Brown, replaced him with Traylon Burks, which has not gone well so far.
Right.
But just with having a guy like him on the market right now, that just throws another wrench into things, and it can make things super interesting. I think it's plenty reasonable to say that we could see upwards of like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 trades in the first round.
Yeah. That whole scenario sets up the Cardinals to pick 3 times, once at 9, 23, and 27, 23 being from the Minnesota trade, and then 27 being from the Houston trade last year. That in this mock draft, I have them getting Rome Odunze, Nate Wiggins, and Chop Robinson, which would be an astounding haul in the first round, just because of the lack of talent they have at those positions, and you're bringing in really good players all in the first round. But yeah, that's I want to add in there. You have any other things interesting for this draft?
The one I won't touch on it too heavily, but the one other thing that I'm really interested to see is what Kansas City does, because I think they could do anything from, with I don't know, I haven't been keeping up super carefully with Rashee Rice's deal. I don't know if he'll be around playing for him this next season. I haven't heard anything about it, but that obviously puts things up in the air. Who knows what his future is going to be? Who knows if he's going to be on the team? I don't know. I haven't kept up with it super carefully, but regardless, even if he did get in trouble, there's still a receiver needy team, and this is a deep draft, and so it'll really just depend on their grades on the receivers and what kind of receiver they are looking for. They could either stick and pick, they could move up to get a guy, they could move down and get a guy. And it'll depend, like I said, it'll depend on their grades they have on receivers, who they like better than others. Perhaps they have a higher grade on one guy who the rest of the league just isn't quite as high on. But it'll also depend on when the other teams take receivers, because we're going to see a good number of receivers go round 1. And if we get a run on receivers in late teens, early 20s, Kansas City could be one of those teams jumping up into the draft to get one of the guys that they're real high on, But I'm sold on them taking receiver round 1. And I think they could do it anywhere from 18 all the way back to trading back into the second round to acquire more picks and get a guy back there.
Yeah, I think they are either, to me, it's receiver or it's tackle. I don't think they go anywhere else. I guess you could play in corner if somebody kind of slips down the board because of the fact they traded Snead. But I really still think it probably ends up being receiver or tackle. And that kind of will be my last thing I want to say about the draft.
Yeah.
Potential is, it kind of ties into that, a late round 1 wide receiver pairing. And that is one of my favorite, just picked marriages in this draft, is Bills getting AD Mitchell. I think that would be a beyond spectacular pick. But that would just be so good for them. That's kind of the same scenario you're talking about here, just a late round team getting a really good player of need too. So yeah, that's all I have for this draft. Anything you have?
That'd be a great pick for them. I'd be terribly sad if I had to watch. I had a little bit of hope whenever Buffalo traded Stephon Diggs away. I was like, all right, cool. Maybe Josh Allen won't terrorize the Patriots defense this coming season. But if they get a guy who I love, AD Mitchell, if they were to get an AD Mitchell, then I can't help but think it'd be shades of Stephon Diggs all over again, and Josh Allen's reign of terror continues. If that happens, I will be crying on draft night.
Yeah, it would be a very nice move for the Bills and not a nice move for the rest of the AFC East. But either way, that's a good one. All right, now we are going to move into our next little segment, and this is going to be a little game called What's More Likely. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a thing, and you'll just go in a brief, explanation of what you think, what scenario is more likely, right? So we've had a lot of talk about the number 2 quarterback. Who is after Caleb Williams? What about the number 3 quarterback? Who is more likely to go number 3 to assuming New England, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels.
Oh gosh.
And let me say, he
Yeah.
does not know any of these questions. They're all coming at him right now off the top.
Right. So are we assuming that all three of these guys, like say for something happens at something crazy were to happen at 2, and like Arizona trades up to 2 to draft Marvin Harrison? Obviously that wouldn't happen, but you're saying like if all three of these were available at 3?
Yeah, we're just saying who's more likely. Just who is more likely to go.
Who's most likely to land at 3? Regardless of situation. I'd have to go with Jaden Daniels. And I'm not buying the fact that Washington's number 1 quarterback is not Drake May. I think it's just the prospect fatigue setting in on Drake May's name. Jaden Daniels, I think he'd be a really good fit, and there certainly is merit to him going at 2 and making Drake May be the option there for New England at 3. But for now, I'm playing it safe with my prediction. I'm gonna say May goes 2, and that puts Daniels at 3.
I think I agree with that one as well. Moving on to the next one. Do you think it's more likely that the top 5 teams keep their picks, or that both the Cardinals and Chargers trade out?
Man, I think it's more likely that both of those teams trade out.
Really?
I think so.
Not one trades out, both trade out.
Yeah. Because I think both of those teams have a lot to gain by trading out. I think with the I'll just start with the Chargers. I think the Chargers could trade out to acquire more picks so that Harbaugh can get more of his guys in the building that he wants, kind of flip that team over a little bit quicker. And then Arizona, they don't have a new coach coming in, but their roster is so depleted to the point where they just need as many picks as they can to get some young talent in there. And so,
right. And
I don't think it's certain that a team wants to trade up into the top 5 to get to take McCarthy. Well, pardon me. That's for the other option. Though McCarthy could go anywhere between top 5 and top 15 per se. A team desperate enough for a quarterback like Minnesota or Denver could be a team that looks to move up in the top 5 and take him.
Yeah, I think I disagree with you because I just think to a point if the Cardinals trade out of 4, the Chargers will more than likely land Marvin Harrison Jr. to pair with Justin Herbert. So that's where I'm looking at it. So that's why I'd say more likely that they keep the 5. But either way, going to the next one. In the top 10, there will be more quarterbacks total or tackles and wide receivers. So far in the first 10, you see maybe, let's say, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Joe Alt. That's 4 quarterbacks. But then there's what, 2 more picks there? I mean, does Bo Nix land in the top 10? Does, another receiver slide in, another tackle slide in? Talise Fuaga, Torrey Fatano.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying either more quarterbacks or more wide receivers tackles?
Yeah, correct. But tackles, wide receiver number together.
I'm going to go quarterback. And I'm going quarterback solely, that quarterback being Bo Nix, solely because of the 2 teams that are so needy, as well as, Oakland's super Oakland. The Raiders are extremely needy at quarterback as well. I think it's more likely that one of those 3 teams, one of those 3 teams moves up into the top 10 to reach on a Bo Nix than it is that you see Talise Fuaga or Fatanu or who knows, Brian Thomas or A.D. Mitchell going top 10. I just don't know that any one of those, the next best wide receiver or tackle available is a player that a team wants to grab inside the top 10.
Yeah, and that positional value will get you.
Right.
So that's definitely a factor of that there. I think I agree with that. I think I do. I don't know. That one's a tough one. I haven't put enough thought into it. We'll still go along. And the next question is Caleb Williams more likely to be quarterback 1 in this draft, as in he's the first quarterback drafted, or is it more likely that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the first receiver drafted? So essentially what I'm saying is there another quarterback taken for Caleb or another receiver taken for Marvin?
Certainly Caleb. Caleb will for sure be the one.
So really, you're
Uh,
saying it's more likely that he's QB1. Okay.
yeah, because I think there's a discussion there. There's something worth discussing there about Marvin Harrison versus Malik Neighbors because they're two different receivers with extremely high upside. Both, I think, will be really productive players. But they do, in terms of receivers, if we're talking solely receivers, they do in a way play different positions. They have different strengths. And so if Arizona wants the more explosive, take the top off the defense type of receiver, perhaps they opt for Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr. Whereas Marvin Harrison Jr. is more of your route technician, and he can do everything, but
Right.
Malik Neighbors can do some things a little bit better, and he has a little bit more upside in different places. So
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, he's just the outright one.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Now we're going to move out of the draft a little bit, just kind of go into the NFL as a whole. Better chance to go worst to first in their division: Panthers, Commanders, or Patriots?
Not the Patriots. Their roster is a dumpster fire. I'm gonna have to say not the Panthers either because their roster is kind of also a dumpster fire, and I don't know how much help Bryce Young is going to get this year. Uh, Washington has talent for sure. The defense is a little bit rough, but they've got some talent. They're catching the Cowboys on potentially a down year. The Giants are also a dumpster fire. The Eagles, we'll have to see how they rebound. They'll still be a good team, but Washington, I'd say Washington, though they're not a strong bet to go worst to first by any means. Out of those three, I think they're most likely for sure.
Yeah. The question is just who's more likely, not who will do it. That's
Yeah.
definitely it. That one's tough for me as well. I think the Panthers, it would have to be like Bryce Young hits just a good stride, and they get a good receiver in there, and
They
Deontay
they
Johnson
have
helps out.
they're in a weak division already.
That's a
So
fair point.
they could, who knows? I mean, if they get a bunch of dudes who just suddenly break out this season and
Yeah.
they really take over, Bryce Young starts to develop into a stud quarterback, that number one quarterback they drafted, then maybe they do make that jump. But
Right.
yeah.
So the next one: who wins more games in 2024, the Bills or the Texans?
Mm. Let's go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Texans. I'm gonna go
Texans.
Texans. Yeah. And Josh Allen, great quarterback, and he's the type of guy who can carry a team. However, they've had so much turnover, so much turnover. And as a coach right now, I think I like D'Amico Ryan's better. I like what he's been able to do with that young Texans defense. They've got a bunch of guys on that defense who are up and comers. They just brought in Stephon Diggs. They already had a pretty solid receiving room. They've got that is today. That's probably the best receiving room in the league. Underrated. I think it's a little bit of an underrated take, maybe not something people are thinking about right now. But if you got Diggs, Nico Collins, the season that he's coming off of, and Tank Dell working out of the slot, that is a group to be reckoned with.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty solid.
Yeah, brought in Daniil Hunter. They got him and Will Anderson. I like that Texans team a lot.
This one, I do have a pretty staunch opinion on it. I think it's going to be the Bills. I think we're going to see a sophomore slump from the Texans overall, whether it be D'Amico Ryans or the C.J. Stroud. And you're also looking at the fact that they're going to play a first place record this year. They won their division last year, and that's going to be tough. Last year, they had a fourth place schedule. I said record. I mean schedule. They're going to play a first place schedule. That last year, they played a fourth place schedule. Now, that doesn't mean everything, but it definitely means something. That's and it. I've been on the Bills bandwagon for a little bit now. I mean, I think they're a good team. Yes, they lost a lot of players. That's exactly why they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Everybody's going to think they're just disregarded, and then this is the year they're going to win the Super Bowl after they lose all these players, and it's just going to be Curtis Samuel and Lad McConkey going out there catching passes and scoring touchdowns. That's what it's going to be. Like, it's inevitable. It really is.
We shall see.
Yeah. What happens first? Brady throws another NFL pass. This comes off of him on that little interview saying that he might, come back if the iron gets hot or something. I don't know. Or Josh Allen throws a pass in the Super Bowl. Kind of going off of what I just said there.
Yeah. I as much as I would love to see Tom Brady throw another pass, I think it'd probably be Josh Allen throwing a pass in the Super Bowl this year.
I didn't say this year.
Brady.
I'm just saying if anytime from.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll go with Josh Allen throwing a pass in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not looking all that likely. With how much how unlucky the Bills have been in the playoffs. But I think the thing about Brady is that even if he does want to come back, it would take a team willing to bring him in at what it'd be 47 years old roughly.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know how well of shape he's kept himself in, but it I don't know. I just find it unlikely that would actually happen. As much as I would love to see it.
Yeah. The next one is who is more likely to be in Dallas in 2025? Dak Prescott or Mike McCarthy?
Mm. Oh gosh, that's tough. That's tough. Let's Dak. Mike McCarthy, he's already been on kind of a short leash the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Dak, I don't. I think it's extremely unlikely that one stays and one leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with how even with how loyal Jerry Jones is to his guys, how there have certainly been discussions about Dak's future with the team. The only reason that I would say Dak though is because I think Dallas might have a really difficult time trying to find someone better than Dak, unless some guy who we're not thinking of right now hits the open market and Dallas can throw a massive money bag at him and be like, "Come be the Cowboys quarterback," right?
Right.
So yeah, Dak.
I say Dak's more likely to be there as well. The next one is what quarterback is more likely to have more success in 2024? Both off Achilles injuries, Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins?
Aaron Rodgers for sure. I won't elaborate too long. He's a better quarterback. He's got, I think, by the time the regular season starts, he's going to have better weapons to work with. Atlanta's guys are underrated. Don't get me wrong. However, Aaron Rodgers, I'm not super high on Kirk Cousins as a player. I think he's closer to field general than he is the game manager than he is to the Aaron Rodgers status. So especially coming off an Achilles, I don't know what Kirk's going to be like. So I'd have to go Aaron Rodgers. You can say the same Achilles injury, but Aaron Rodgers easy.
I think I agree with that as well. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a lot more to prove on his own self too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the spirit of the NBA playoffs, we're going to jump ship completely, something we've never done before on this podcast. Who is more likely to make it to the conference finals in this NBA playoffs coming up? The Knicks or the Mavericks? Let me just say the Knicks will play either the Sixers or the Heat in the first round. And if I'm not mistaken, then they'd have to play the Bucks or the Pacers. And then they'd obviously be in the conference finals. The Mavericks will be playing the Clippers in the first round and then would play either the Thunder or whoever gets the 8th seed, assuming it's let's say the Lakers or the Pelicans. I think it's one of those two. Or the Warriors or the Kings. They all can play there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to say the Mavericks. I think if there's a year for Dallas to really make a run in the playoffs, it's this year because you've got those young teams like the Thunder and the Timberwolves up at the top. Nuggets for sure, team to be reckoned with out of the West. But there's a very real scenario where those either one of those two teams, Timberwolves or the Thunder, drop the series to a lower seeded team just because they don't have the playoff experience. And the Knicks, nothing against the Knicks. It's just that I like the Mavericks star power better.
Yeah.
That's what you get deep into the playoffs, and that's what wins you games is your stars coming through. And I'd rather bank on Luka and Kyrie than Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he's Luka, and he might even win the MVP this year. Not to mention they make those trades to add in Gafford, and they add in PJ Washington at the deadline. Major additions there for their depth, their defense. Their defense was a big issue in the last few years. But either way, next question. Also in the spirit of the NBA playoffs, Nuggets go back-to-back or the field?
So today I'd have to pick the Nuggets out of the West, just because they have the experience, they know what it takes in the playoffs, and of course they're a really good team, still a really good team this year. Out of the East, man, I think all the other teams outside of the Celtics, I expect the Celtics to be in the conference finals. After that, any one of those teams could drop a series in the first round realistically. And the Celtics have proven to once they get deep into the playoffs, into those we saw them get to the NBA finals and lose to the Warriors, but man, they really struggle to get it done in the big games. And so I think I'd have to say Nuggets repeat. I think I'd have to say Nuggets repeat.
There you go. I have no idea. I don't know what I'd pick because, as you said, we've seen the Celtics prove that they can go that far. However, we've also seen the Celtics prove that they can lose to the Heat as an 8 seed every single year. Yeah, I might be a Heat fan, but that doesn't matter. Either way. Final question for this What's More Likely series. Now, in college basketball, with some of the biggest news we've seen this offseason, who is likely to make a deeper run in the 2025 tournament, Kentucky or Arkansas? With the Calipari switch.
Don't ask me who's going to be making the run, because Arkansas literally has no players on the roster right now because
and they just got the big man from Kentucky. They just got the big. He doesn't play. I don't even know his name. He's like
Did they? Oh, okay. Big tall guy, 7'2".
His name's like Zavirovic or something. I don't know. I'm probably making stuff up.
It's better than what we had before. There was literally no one on the team, so we've got that guy.
Zvonimir Ivcevic.
Yeah.
Don't count that.
Right. That's tough. It's tough because Calipari has to completely build an entire roster. He has no player. Once he
does
took
it every year, though.
He had no one. Right, but at least you get some guys, right? But and like you said, he does it every year. There's so much roster turnover at Kentucky because they've been mostly comprised of freshmen. Right. I'd have to go with Coach Cal though. I don't think bringing in a talented roster will be a problem. The issue will be getting them to work and gel together well. Mm-hmm. And Kentucky, I don't know how much talent they're going to have retained from last season with Coach Cal leaving. And BYU's coach will have to prove himself in a real Power 5 conference. So
right,
I'm a bank on the legend Coach Cal.
Yeah, I get it as well. I think so. I'm gonna go that way too. We've seen Arkansas make some runs in the last few years, and it's gonna be a completely different regime and different players. But why can't it happen still? I don't think it can. So now we're going to go into another little game. Would you rather? So just two situations. Which one would you pick personally? First is going to be, would you rather inherit the Ravens in their current state, John Harbaugh's position, or the Niners in Kyle Shanahan's position? I keep saying Mike.
Niners. Niners for sure. Because it's nice that the Ravens have franchise quarterback locked down long term. However, we've seen him struggle in the postseason. Mm-hmm. Also, outside of the quarterback position, they play in the AFC. The AFC is loaded. To get to the Super Bowl, you got to go through Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen. We've got Aaron Rodgers now, who he won't be around for super long. So if we're talking like long term, then that's less of a factor. But the AFC is loaded. The NFC is much, much more wide open. We've got the Eagles. Yeah. Sure, they took a step back this year, so this year we'll get to gauge just what the Eagles are right now as a team. Lions will have to prove to do it again, but after that, you get a little bit of a drop off. San Francisco right now is for sure the top dog out of the NFC, and they've got dudes, man. They got a bunch of dudes. Not that the Ravens don't, but they got dudes, and so I'd have to say the Niners.
I'd go with the Niners as well because, in my reason, it's similar to what you started with. You've seen them make the playoffs, but they lose because of kind of coaching errors and mistakes like that. So if you're inheriting and replacing Shanahan, the coach, maybe that doesn't happen anymore. I don't know. Either way. Who would you rather have right now? Caleb Williams or Jordan Love? So this is like not Jordan Love on the Packers, not Caleb Williams, assuming on the Bears. This is just the quarterback.
What about the contractual element? Do I get the same contract, or are we just talking about the player in a vacuum?
Just the player.
Okay. Uh, I'll say Caleb Williams. Because I don't. Yeah, Jordan Love had a great year for sure. Um, and I want to see him do it again. Now, Caleb Williams, he's the type of guy who could be a generational talent, and I'm willing to take that risk because I don't think the risk is worth it because I don't know how much of a risk Caleb Williams really is. But I'm willing to take whatever risk that is because I'm just not sold yet that Jordan Love is a quarterback talent that is not worth passing up. I hope that made sense.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just like one thing I'll correct what you said. He had a good year. No, he had a good half year. After game 2, from game 2 to about 10, it was pretty rough. But either way, I think I'd take Caleb Williams over that. Same question. Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence?
Oh gosh, that's tough. See, I struggle with that. The Trevor Lawrence thing is weird because I don't know how much of Trevor Lawrence right now that when I think of Trevor Lawrence, am I still thinking of number 1 pick generational quarterback coming out of the draft, Trevor Lawrence, or am I thinking of year 3 going on to year 4, Trevor Lawrence?
Mm-hmm.
And man, I don't know. Oh, that's tough. Why did you have to make such a
If you want me to give you my answer, I'll go ahead and do that. To me,
you answer. I've answered all these first. You give me an answer first.
On this one, I'm going with to say the draft pick versus now. Draft pick, I'm going Caleb Williams. Now I'm going Trevor Lawrence because we've seen Trevor have some good play. Yeah, it's been hit and miss. It's been kind of spotty. However, he also has a crappy line. He has wide receiver 2s and 3s. He doesn't have real weapons. I think we've seen him do enough with what he's had, and like you can't expect him to do great with nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. So what I'm trying to think of is how likely is it that Caleb Williams pans out to be worse than what we know Trevor Lawrence to be as a professional right now?
Right.
And I don't see any reason why that can't be possible, but I think it's fair I think it's a fair question for the sake that they pretty I could see Caleb Williams being in the same position that Trevor Lawrence is now 3 years from now. I'll take Trevor just because, like you said, we've seen flashes, and I still think there is for sure. I think there's still a world where Trevor Lawrence is a top 5 quarterback in the league once Jacksonville, builds a better team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that doesn't mean that Caleb will be bad. It's just that he may not be that good. Now, granted, Caleb's going to go into the situation in Chicago that he's going to have better receivers than Trevor's ever had already. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. But either way, same question one more time. Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy?
Oh, Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
bro, give me Caleb.
Yeah.
Give me
All
Caleb.
right. I had to check, but Purdy's just not. He's done good with what he's had, but he's just not the same talent level. It's just not there. Either way.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Ladd McConkey or Xavier Worthy?
Oh, give me Ladd. I'm sold on it. I think he's there. The thing about Xavier Worthy is that he'll put on more weight in the league because I don't know. Well, I don't know. Maybe not. We saw Tank Dell play around 165.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason why Xavier Worthy can't play around 170. But I trust Ladd McConkey more as a more complete receiver. I've, from all the draft analysis that we've seen, Ladd McConkey From what we saw in college, he catches the ball.
Yeah.
In what we've seen in draft analysis, he is a pristine route runner.
Oh yeah.
He's got more size as well. He's pushing that 6 foot mark, where Xavier Worthy, I believe, is only around 5'8", maybe 5'9". Give me lad. Give me
Yeah.
lad.
I'm the same way there. All right. So Vikings move to 3 to get May or Daniels, or they move to 5 or 6 to get JJ. You're deciding. Like you can move up all the way to 3 to get May or
You're saying
Daniels.
is this if I'm the Vikings?
Yes, you're the Vikings. You move up to 3 to get May or Daniels, whichever one's available.
Yeah.
Or you move
Yeah.
to 5 to 6 and get JJ McCarthy.
I'm gonna say 5 to 6 because I don't think I think the Vikings very well could take JJ McCarthy and he could be a pretty darn good quarterback. But also less on the Vikings side of it and less on the prospect side of it with those quarterbacks. They would have to hand over an absolute haul to New England to get New England to move out of the 3 spot because they're for sure taking quarterback. To offer them a haul for the number 3 spot to convince them that it's better than drafting one of the top 3 rookie quarterbacks in the draft right now, especially with number 3 being that cutoff, you're giving up an awful lot. Right. So I think I'd rather take McCarthy at 5 or 6 than have to give up that however much more that would be to get a Daniels or May, who may still not be the type of quarterback that they're projected to be in the league.
Yeah, that's a tough one. A.D. Mitchell or Brian Thomas Jr.?
I think I like A.D. Mitchell better as a more versatile receiver. I think he can work inside and out. Brian Thomas is amazing as a downfield threat. So I'm not just going to say both. However, I do think it's subjective based on the team and their need, what they're looking for in a receiver. I think I'd go with A.D. Mitchell though. I like how fluid of a player he is. He was more athletic and tested better than I thought he would. He wasn't quite as tall as I thought he was either. He was about 6'2.5" as opposed to some people had him listed as like 6'4". But I like being able to move him around slot or outside and get certain matchups that I might like better. I like that. I'm also really high on A.D. Mitchell. I like him a lot as a prospect. So I'd have to lean A.D. Mitchell, although Brian Thomas, I think he's also got the potential to be an amazing player. I think more often we see that mold of a receiver not pan out as well in the league, the guy who's kind of exclusively a deep threat.
Yeah.
So that kind of plays in a factor for me. I like A.D. Mitchell, though. I'm going to go with him.
I like A.D. Mitchell a lot as well. I think that's a guy. That's a dude right there. Next one. This is kind of – so this is little ready for this. So Bo Nix. It's like let's say you're the Raiders. Let's preface this a little bit, right? You're about that Raiders selection, like 13, and you're in their kind of team needs, right? They need a quarterback, but they just don't have the assets to really get one unless they want to really, really trade up.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Nix, right there at 13, or trading back into the end of the first round to get a Michael Penix?
Bo Nix at 13. I'm not sold on Penix. I just like Bo Nix better. I think his ceiling's not super high. However, I don't know that Penix's ceiling is super high either. I think Bo Nix has a much higher floor than Penix does. Also, I don't think perhaps if we're talking just about realistically where these players are going to go in the draft, not where they should go or where they rank on a big board.
Right.
That's about the range for Bo Nix. I really anymore with the number of quarterback needy teams that there are going to be, and just the fact that there's not enough top end tier quarterbacks in the draft this year.
Yeah.
For all those teams to be satisfied. I think that's the range for Bo Nix, somewhere between 12 and 16 in there. And so, uh, given that I am higher on Nix than Penix, and I think that's Nix's range, whether he should be there talent wise or not, I'd say Nix at 13.
Yeah. It's a tough one for me because, I'll say it, I don't know if I make sure this is clear. You would pick at 13, but then trade back into the first round, pick 30 or something like that to get Penix. So you'd have a first round pick and then a second first round pick to get Penix. That was kind of what I was getting at there, making sure that's clear.
Oh,
But at the
okay.
same time, I do think I'd still go Nix. I just think he's a better NFL prospect. To me, the processor is better on Nix. He might have the best pre-snap processor in the league in terms of how he can dissect a play before it starts. And one thing I've heard recently, and this was I don't mean to compare Bo Nix to another Oregon quarterback and Justin Herbert because I hate when people do that. Drake May, Mitch Trubisky, they're the same player. No, they're not. Not even a little bit. I hate when people do that. But don't hate on what the quarterback was asked to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Bo Nix, he was asked to throw 76 screens a game. Like, that's not his fault. Like, same thing with
Mm-hmm.
JJ McCarthy. He wasn't always asked to throw the ball. He was asked to hand the ball off. You can't hate
Mm-hmm.
on the player for getting asked to do that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
Nix, he does have maybe a more limited ceiling, but so did Drew Brees. Drew Brees had a limited ceiling. He ended up top 5-3 in all stats ever. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's just differences there.
Yeah.
If you're picking, which 2021 quarterback circles back to relevance? Wilson, Fields, Jones, or Lance?
Not Zach Wilson, not Mac Jones. Uh, so between Trey Lance and Justin Fields, I'm gonna say Trey Lance. I don't think he's gotten enough. He had his first year as a starter in San Francisco cut short due to injury. Then he was traded. Um, Brock Purdy happened to just play extremely well and took the starting spot as a Mr. Irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, being circling back to relevance implies that you were given a shot as a starter. And I think at some point it's more likely that Trey Lance gets another shot as a starter than it is that Justin Fields does. Because he's going to sit for a year and Pittsburgh probably won't bring him back. And then I don't know after this next year that a team's going to go after Justin Fields as their starter, even on like a 1 year. I think he fits in more as a backup, and he'll get some shots to start some games here and there. But I don't know if he'll be going into the season QB1 again. I think that's more of an opportunity that Trey Lance would see more likely.
To me, I can't shake the feeling that Zach Wilson somehow will. And I don't know why. Because
I don't know why either.
I, I think he has a chance right now to mature. And I think that's a big part of what his problems have been, just his maturity level. And if he can do that, and because like last year when he started for Owen Rodgers was hurt, there was a couple games we saw where he kind of had some things. He worked the field and he got down there. He made some things happen. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5 quarterback one day, but who's to say he doesn't sit behind Rodgers for 2 years? Rodgers retires, and then maybe they give him another shot at being the Jets quarterback because nobody's going to trade for him right now. That or Mac Jones. We've seen Mac Jones have a really good year as a NFL passer, something that we've never seen from really any of the 3 others. Like, we've seen Mac Jones be a good NFL passer. Never seen that
Mm,
from Wilson. Never seen that from Trey Lance. Never seen that from Fields. Maybe he circles around as a high end backup, and then somebody gets hurt and he gets a real legit shot to do something else again. I don't know. I think they're all dead in the water. Either way, Jared Verse or Lay to Latu.
ooh, man.
2 ends of the spectrum here. Young, powerful, raw versus older, technical, very sound.
Hmm. Uh, oh man, that's tough. This is kind of a similar question to the AD Mitchell versus Brian Thomas because they're different players who you could see one team, any team could take one over the other, just depending on what they want. I think I think I'd go Jared Verse because I think he'd be a little bit more versatile of a player. I think he's a guy that I think he's big and physical enough to play. He's big, physical, and athletic enough to either play outside on the edge, or you can kick him in a little bit more, a little bit further inside, and maybe use some of his athleticism to work on a guard. If we're talking like a third down pass rush type deal. Um, and then also there's with Leatu Latu, he did have to retire from football temporarily. He's back now, and medicals have checked out. But you know, if you have to retire from your sport in college, that's something that will be considered, and he's going to fall in the draft because of it. But you know, I'd have to go Jared Verse.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Just from the standpoint of he's younger, he hasn't had the mileage on him. That's really it. Next, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins, or Quinion Mitchell.
Give me Cooper DeJean. I like his versatility a lot, his ability to play the run. He's got pretty good coverage ability as well. Great athlete. I think he could really be an X factor for a defense if he lives up to the potential that he has. Quinion Mitchell, great athlete, great cover player. He could be a dog for sure. I just, I guess the only thing that really holds me back from him is that he played at Toledo. So we'll have to see how it translates whenever he's playing against the best of the best every week. Nate Wiggins, I worry about his size. I worry that he's going to be kind of, I don't know, just bullied out there on the outside. I like Cooper DeJean's ability a lot, his versatility.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that one. Cooper DeJean that's my dog. He needs to be a Steeler. He absolutely needs to be a Steeler. I've said it enough. Next, we have, what is it? There we go. Broncos trade up or stay put. You're the Broncos, trade up or stay put.
At 12. I'm gonna say stay put. They don't have a whole lot of capital to work with. They're not gonna be able to move up into the top 4, I don't think, to get McCarthy top 5. And I think Knicks would work extremely well in Denver, so I'd say stay put.
Yeah, I agree. Now, same question: Raiders trade up or Raiders stay put?
I'm gonna say stay put is. That's tough though because Denver's right there. I'm gonna say stay
They're
put.
At 13, Denver's at 12.
I think stay put. It's more likely that the Raiders stay put and ride with Minshew for a year than it is that Denver stays put, misses out on a quarterback, and rides with whoever their backup is right now. I can't.
Jarrett Stidham, baby.
I'd have to go Raider. I'd say Raiders stay put.
Gotcha. And one final one in the spirit of the NBA playoffs. The Heat go on another stupid run, or a favorite wins it and keeps it boring. I'm not saying the Heat win the finals. I'm just saying the Heat go on another one of their dumb runs, maybe make the finals or whatever.
Sure.
Or basically Celtics or Nuggets.
Yeah. I gotta say favorite. Has Jimmy now? I'm not a Heat fan, so I haven't been keeping up with the Heat. Has Jimmy has Jimmy had a little bit of a down year this year, or am I making that up?
Jimmy has a down year every year. He's doing his side quests, and now he's focusing on the main quest. Like it's just not a factor.
Yeah.
He was in a Fall Out Boy music video. In Spo we trust, baby.
I think they very well could do it again with how the East is weak and it's the Celtics at the top again. We've seen them take out the Celtics before. They could do it, but just because they've done it before doesn't make it more likely. I'm gonna have to go favorite. I'm gonna have to let you down there.
The only thing I'll say here You're a hater. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
This is the best Heat team we've seen, actually. This, in my opinion, is much better than any other Heat team. We actually have a legitimate center behind Bam Adebayo. Something's flying in front of me. Thomas Bryant has actually shown up to be a really solid rotational center, one that can block shots and rebound the ball, not named Kevin Love, who is a good passer and shooter. That's not a center. You know what I'm saying? This guy's a true big man. You also have a rookie like Jaime Jaquez, who's played really well and just a seamless fit into that team. They're healthy right now, assuming Terry Rozier comes back and all that. Terry Rozier is another addition, better than Kyle Lowry. They bring in DeLon Wright as well. They're better point guard situation, more offense in the second unit with Jaime, with Terry Rozier, things like that. I'm not saying it will happen again, but I don't see why it can't happen again. That's the point it's at. It's like, if you've doubted at any point, why are you doubting now? Because this is a better team. But either way, that's going to end it for Would You Rather and What's More Likely. Thank you guys for watching this episode. Different look than usual, as we've had some technical difficulties, but we made it through and we're going to post this anyways. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Spending an hour of your time with us, and we'll see y'all in the next upload, whenever that might be.